Okay, now that we've got our text inputs and we've got our text area, next on our list is the category. We want this to be a select input where we can select from a list of different options. And let's go and take a look and see what we need to do for this. So what we'll do, we'll go back to Solution Explorer, and inside the form folder, we'll create another new component, and we'll call this my select inputs.tsx. And what we'll do just as a starting point is we'll copy the code from our text input once again, and we'll paste it inside here, but we'll need to make a few more changes in this one. So we'll rename this to my select inputs, and we're also going to need another property in here because our select input is going to take a list of different options to select from. So for the options, we'll just use the any. We won't create a type for this. And another change that we'll need to make is we'll need something else from our use field. And this time we're going to get the helpers in addition to this. And the helpers allows us to manually set a value and manually set the touch status of our input component. Now we're still going to have this inside a form field for the styling. We'll still keep the label, and the input is going to be different, and what we're going to use for this is the select option from Semantic UI. And the select component, well, let's take a look at the Semantic UI documentation for select. And if we take a look at the list of components on the left hand side, and somewhere in here inside the add-ons we have a select component, and the select is really just sugar for drop down selection. And if we go and take a look at the props available in the drop down and take a look at the props, then when we use the select we have access to all of these different properties. We can make it clearable, which means we can clear the selection, and also we have the on blur event, so we can use this to set the touched property inside Formic, and we can also take advantage of the on change event inside the select so that we can set the value when we have made a selection. So we'll be using these properties inside our select, and what we're going to do is we'll use the clearable option. We'll make it clearable because this will allow people to, or our users, to clear their selection, and then if they click away then it will display the validation. Now we also need some options, and we'll set these to the props.options. We're going to need to pass options or a list of different options for the user to select from. We'll also need to give it the value, and this is going to be the field.value, or it's going to be null. So we're not spreading our properties across here. We need to be a bit more careful with this component than we were with the text input or the text area. We also need to give this an onChange event, and what we're going to do for this, our onChange event inside here takes an event as the first parameter and data as the second parameter, and data is where we're going to get the selected value from. So what we'll do is we'll say E for event and D for data, and then we'll use the helpers that we get from our use field, and then we can use the set value method in here, and we'll set it to d.value. Then we'll use the on blur because we'll also need to configure this, because otherwise we won't know whether or not this has been touched, because we're not spreading the field properties. So we need to pass, or need to set the on blur ourselves inside the select component. So what we'll do here is we don't need any parameters for this, but what we'll use is, once again, we'll use the helpers, and we'll say set touched, and we'll specify true. And then we'll use the placeholder, and we'll say props.placeholder. And the error handling, or the validation, is the same. We don't need to change this. And this is our select input. Now what we do need as well is some options to be able to pass into this. So what we'll do, we'll go back to Solution Explorer. Inside the common folder, let's create another new folder, and we'll just call it options. And inside the options folder, we'll create a new file, and we'll call it category options.ts. And inside here, what we'll do is we'll just say export const, and we'll say category options. And this is just going to be an array of options, and we'll have a text property for the object, and we'll say drinks in this one, and we'll give it a value, and it's just going to be lowercase drinks. And add a comma, and we'll just copy this down 5 more times. And we need one for culture. We need one for film. We need food and music and travel. And we just need to do the same for the lowercase as well. And we'll just finish off with travel. And what we can do then is we can head over to our activity form, and we're going to replace the my text input here for my select input. And all we need to do is pass this the options, and we'll pass in the category options that we just created there. And if we go take a look at the browser and go back to our app, and let's just refresh the page. And now we've got our category drop down, and we can make a selection, and we can clear the selection, and if we click away, then we get the validation, and we can make a selection and the validation goes away. That's what we're looking for. And of course, what we want to make sure is that when we submit, that we submit with the selected category. And let's just add other properties. And we submit, and we can see that the category is selected as food. That's what we're looking for. So now we've got our select input. The next one we're going to take a look at is the date input. We're saving the most complicated till last, and we'll take a look at that one next.